Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a truly fascinating intersection of medicine, law, and chemistry today, the Suboxone mass tort. For a drug that's been hailed as an absolute hero in the opioid epidemic, the sheer scale of the legal backlash we're seeing right now is pretty unprecedented. We're looking at a mass tort unfolding across the United States, involving a critical medication, thousands of patients, and some very serious questions about pharmaceutical accountability.
So think about this for a second. What happens when a life-saving treatment carries a devastating hidden cost? That's really the central conflict we're unpacking today. On one hand, you have a medication that is literally a lifeline in the fight against opioid addiction. It saved countless lives. But on the other hand, we now have a rapidly growing number of patients who allege this exact same medication has taken a severe, permanent physical toll on their bodies, causing irreversible damage.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the day. 1. The Suboxone legal battle. 2. The science of the damage. 3. The failure to warn. 4. Inside the multi-district litigation. And 5. Assessing the damages.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, the Suboxone legal battle. Over 11,000. I mean, that is just a staggering number of consolidated cases currently filed against the drug's manufacturer, Indivior. We aren't just talking about a handful of isolated complaints here. This is a massive, nationwide wave of litigation driven by patients who feel their trust was profoundly broken. You know, when someone seeks help for opioid use disorder, they are highly vulnerable. They're relying completely on these prescribed treatments to get their lives back on track. So for thousands of these folks to now step forward into the legal arena, it really shows the intense magnitude of this grievance. The litigation behind Suboxone claims has essentially snowballed into one of the most closely watched mass torts in recent history. Now, you likely already know Suboxone is a cornerstone of modern addiction recovery. It effectively combines buprenorphine and naloxone to treat opioid use disorder by curbing cravings and preventing withdrawal. But the intense legal focus here is specifically on the sublingual film variant. You know, the little strip you place under the tongue. While it brilliantly interacts with brain chemistry to keep patients in recovery, its actual physical properties in the mouth are exactly what's under the legal microscope right now.
Moving on to Section 2, the science of the damage.
So this sublingual film is inherently acidic. We're talking about a pH level hovering right around 3. To put that into perspective, that's roughly the acidity of grapefruit juice or certain dark sodas. And when a patient places this film under their tongue, it doesn't just instantly vanish. It takes a good 5 to 10 minutes to fully dissolve. During that daily window, this highly acidic formulation drastically lowers the pH of the whole mouth. Now combine that daily acid exposure with another extremely common side effect of the drug, which is chronic dry mouth or reduced saliva flow, and you create a remarkably harsh oral environment. The teeth are essentially bathed in acid without nearly enough saliva to naturally neutralize and wash it all away. And that sustained acidic environment, it leads to a pretty brutal reality for these plaintiffs. We're looking at a rapid and severe breakdown of tooth enamel. Without that protective layer, your teeth are left completely defenseless. The clinical reality for many of these patients involves aggressive tooth decay, deep cavities, and severe oral infections. We are talking about teeth quite literally cracking, fracturing, or just falling out entirely. This damage isn't just cosmetic, right? It's structural and systemic, fundamentally wrecking the patient's oral health in a startlingly short amount of time.
And this isn't just anecdotal. The plaintiff's claims are heavily bolstered by hard clinical data. The FDA actually dug into the adverse event findings and formally acknowledged the severity of the pattern. They identified 305 severe dental injury cases directly linked to Suboxone use. And the stats they uncovered are pretty striking. 37% of these patients experienced damage to multiple teeth, and nearly a quarter, 23.3%, suffered damage so severe that it required complete tooth extractions. Crucially, these injuries were documented even in patients who had absolutely no prior history of dental issues. So the FDA essentially confirmed that the drug's formulation was directly degrading dental health.
Which brings us to Section 3, the failure to warn. This whole litigation really hinges on a critical timeline. The original Suboxone tablet was approved way back in 2002. A decade later, in 2012, the manufacturer launched the sublingual film variant. But here's the kicker. It wasn't until June 17, 2022, that the FDA officially mandated a specific tooth decay warning on the medication's labeling. That massive, decade-long gap between the launch of the acidic film and the official warning label, that's the exact spark that ignited this mass tort. For 10 long years, patients and their doctors were using this film without any explicit warning from the manufacturer about the potential for catastrophic dental decay.
So, we have a classic, high-stakes legal tug-of-war here.
On one side, the plaintiffs are arguing a strict failure to warn. They're alleging that Indivior knew or absolutely should have known about the inherently acidic formulation and the resulting dental risks, but deliberately failed to adequately inform patients and prescribers. On the flip side, the defense leans heavily on a doctrine called federal preemption. They argue that because the FDA strictly regulates and approves the drug's labeling, federal law actually prevented them from altering the warning labels any earlier without the FDA's explicit green light and confirmed adverse event reports. It's a massive battle over who holds the ultimate responsibility for patient awareness.
Let's look at how the courts actually handle this in Section 4, inside the multi-district litigation. Look, when you have over 11,000 people suing the exact same company for the exact same overarching issue, trying each case separately would completely clog the nationwide court system for decades. It's just not possible. Instead, federal courts use something called multi-district litigation, or an MDL. It's a procedure that consolidates all these thousands of individual claims into a single federal court for streamlined, efficient pretrial handling. In this specific instance, we're looking at MDL 3092, which is currently overseen by U.S. District Judge Philip Calabresi in the Northern District of Ohio. By centralizing discovery and all the pretrial rulings, the court can manage this huge influx of claims way more effectively.
Within this MDL, the court uses what's called the bellwether process. Basically, it's a three-step playbook. First, the court gathers comprehensive medical and dental records from a randomly selected pool of plaintiffs. Second, they narrow that down to about 50 core discovery cases. These specific cases undergo incredibly intense scrutiny, depositions, deep evidence gathering, the whole shebang. Finally, a select few of these are chosen for early jury trials. These initial trials are the bellwethers. They test the waters. While their verdicts don't legally bind the other 11,000 cases, they are intensely watched by everyone. They give both sides a really clear look at how a real jury evaluates the scientific evidence and the corporate conduct, which heavily dictates the dollar amounts of future global settlement negotiations.
Finally, we hit Section 5, assessing the damages.
So, what are these plaintiffs actually asking for? Well, it goes way beyond covering the cost of a simple cavity filling. Plaintiffs are seeking compensation for massive past and future dental bills. We're talking about expensive, permanent, full mouth restorations. Think multiple root canals, bone grafts, titanium implants, and full dentures, which can easily run into the tens of thousands of dollars per patient. They're also seeking recovery for lost wages, but most importantly, damages for severe loss of quality of life. We've got plaintiffs who've had to switch to entirely liquid diets or who face immense social stigma, isolation, and severe depression due to catastrophic tooth loss. The psychological and social impact of suddenly losing your smile is a massive component of these claims.
We've covered a ton of ground in this explainer today, from oral pH levels to multi-district federal litigation. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. As we push forward with vital pharmaceutical innovations to treat severe conditions like opioid addiction, how do we perfectly balance that speed and innovation with the absolute ethical and legal duty to warn patients of irreversible side effects? It's a highly complex question, and it's exactly what juries and judges are going to be deciding in the years to come. Thanks for learning with me today.